Today we will start the new chapter, that is chapter 3, the peasant and the Raj. As we have already read, land revenue was the most important source of income of the colonial government. So we have already learned in the previous chapter that land revenue, that means collection of tax on land, was the most important source of income, especially in the colonial government, that means the British government. It was therefore necessary to establish an efficient system of estimating and collecting land revenue from the peasants. So as it was the main source of income of the British, so it should be made in a efficient and a systematic way so that they can earn as much as profit from the peasants. Various land revenue system came into practice across the Indian subcontinent. So different types of land revenue according to the area, according to the you can say fertility of the soil, according to the how much a peasant have, or what type of cultivation is taking place in which area, they have decided the taxes. Besides, when large tract of the countryside came under British rule, certain crops which had great commercial value come to be favored for cultivation. So as British, why they have come in India? They have come to extract as number of natural resources from our Indian subcontinent and take it to their country and earn as much of profit. So that's why the most of the commercial crops, that is different types of spices, different silk, cotton, indigo, these are the commercial crops. So they force the Indian farmers to cultivate these commercial crops and earn as much of profit. As a result, indigo and tea is the earlier in the earlier period, and jute and tea in the later period of the colonial rule become the main commercial crops, as they help Britain maintain a healthy balance of trade. So especially in the earlier period, they have forced the peasant to cultivate indigo and tea. Indigo means Neil, okay, and in the later period they forced to cultivate the jute and tea. So with the help of these four items, they have earned a huge amount of profit. Usually these crops were cultivated at the cost of food crops such as rice and wheat. So these crops were also cultivated uh, with the price, that means how much price was required to cultivate the rice and wheat, the same price was given for the indigo, tea, jute and tea, so that the British can earn as number of profit. The British adopted fraudulent contract and operation to force the peasant to cultivate these crops. So the Britishers, they have adopted you can say uh, you can say illegal way, or you can say a fraud way, in which they have forced the Indian farmers to sign the contract of the British rule, and they were forced to cultivate these crops. Why they were forced? So that they can earn as much of profit from these commercial crops. Responding to the tyrannical regime and its diktats, many peasants groups rose in revolt against the colonial authorities and those among their uh, compatriots who were responsible for implementing colonial policies. So as the British rule, or you can say the British government, they were forcing the Indian farmers to cultivate the commercial crops, due to which the farmers, the Indian farmers or peasants, they revolted against the British rule. And not only the British rule, but the person who follow the different types of rules and regulation of the British rule, the peasants also revolted against them. So this was the condition of Indian farmers during the colonial period. Next, colonial agrarian policies. Now we will learn that what were the different types of policies which were adopted by the British rule. The dual system of governance started by the British in Bengal aimed at increasing the revenue for the company and buy fine cotton and silk cloth at cheap rate with that revenue. So a dual system of governance, that means a dual way of ruling the Bengal, was established by the British rule, and their main aim was to increase the revenue, that means increase the taxes uh, of or you you can say increase the taxes, especially in the Bengal, so that the company can earn as much of profit and they can buy the cotton and silk cloth at a very cheap rate with the revenue price. The urge to maximize revenue directly led to the infamous Bengal famine in 1770, in which one third of the population of Bengal perished and agriculture was abandoned in many parts of the Bengal. So, as especially in Bengal, the Britishers were trying to force the Indian peasant to produce the commercial crops in a large quantity, due to which there was a situation called famine in the year 1770. Famine means there is a shortage of rainfall, as there is as the climate was not favorable for the cultivation, due to which the farmers they have experienced a huge amount of loss in the agriculture. So as there was famine in 1770, due to which the Bengal people they had faced a lot of problem, and in which one third of the population of the Bengal perished. That means whatever were the population of the Bengal, one third of the population, that means the lower section of the society, they have suffered a lot, and even the agriculture was abandoned. That means as the situation was not good for the cultivation, and the peasants or the farmers were facing a lot of problem, due to which this the Indian farmers they said that now we will not do any agriculture in the Bengal. So the EEIC, that is English East India Company, embarked on a systematic approach to land revenue collection with a view to collecting the maximum amount of revenue in a timely and predictable manner. So as there was a famine in 1770, so the English East India Company they have made a systematic way in which they can collect the land revenue, and they have made a system in which they will collect the land revenue in a certain period of time, maybe after 2 months or 6 months or 1 year, and so on, as the situation in the Bengal was very critical. The English East India Company introduced three main types of land revenue settlement in India. So now we will learn one by one what were the different types of uh, you can say revenue system in India. And please remember, the English East India Company they have introduced three types of land revenue settlement in India. So the first one is the permanent settlement, and these permanent settlement was you can say introduced in Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, and the Banaras division of Uttar Pradesh, accounting for 17% of the British territory. Uh, for the 19% of the British territory. So these were the areas where the permanent settlements were adopted. In the next video, we will learn one by one what were the different types of settlement in detail. The Rio 3 settlement covering Bombay, Madras Presidency, accounting for 51% of the company's territory. So the Rio 3 settlement was applied in applied in Bombay and Madras, and these two areas cover 51% of the company's territories. Last one is the Mahalwari settlement, accounted for 30% of the company's territory, covering United Provinces. That means the large part of modern day Uttar Pradesh, Central Province, and Punjab. So these were the areas where Mahalwari settlement were adopted. In this picture, you can see in the left hand side is the Lord Cornwallis, and in the right hand side is the Thomas Munro introduced the permanent settlement and the Rohitri settlement in colonial India respectively. So who implemented permanent settlement in India? It was Lord Cornwallis, and Rohitri settlement in India was introduced by Thomas Munro.